I mean, he's clearly single-digit body fat. He's excessively lean. 99% of people would dream to look like this, to be this lean year-round, but for him, it's decent. Coach Greg, and today we're going to listen to Mike Thurston's explanation as to why his physique changed so much over the last 10 years. And he goes on to explain why his physique, which frankly always looks good, let's be honest, why it looks better at some periods of time in comparison to others. And no, he doesn't go on to admit that it's because he cycles PDs. He claims to be 100% natural. You can believe that, you cannot believe that, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter!
And so let's go into the video and find out.
We're going to have a look at how my physique has changed over the past decade. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't say there's been any drastic changes, but overall I'd say I've been pretty damn consistent.
And so he goes on to explain that there hasn't been any drastic differences, that he's been extremely consistent throughout the years. He goes on to say that a week is the longest time he ever spent away from the gym, and that was because he had a hair transplant.
21 years old, working a full-time job at Hollister. I had 4 years of training in the bag already. Although my upper body looked quite good, the lower body was certainly lacking because I never trained legs.
And so at 21 years of age, he already had an amazing physique. Not so much in the legs, but that was because he didn't train it. But upper body, you can see chest, arms, abs, the chiseled six-pack. Guy looks absolutely incredible.
I found it difficult for me to take my physique to the next level because I was working that full-time job. I was basically just getting the gym sessions in when I could.
You don't just suddenly take your physique to the next level unless you use PDs. And so you can't blame it on having a job, a career, or doing what everyone in the world actually does on the reason why your physique doesn't suddenly have a drastic change.
So we fast forward to the year 2013. This year was quite a big year of change for me because I became a full-time certified personal trainer.
And so you can believe that he suddenly made these massive improvements because he had more time to go to the gym whenever he wanted and was a personal trainer, or it might be because he started to take PDs. We don't know. Believe whatever you want.
It was the year where I decided to push myself. I entered my first competition. Obviously, when you have that goal in mind, your discipline and intensity just goes to the next level.
It was the best his physique has ever looked. Now, let's be honest. When you've only been training in the gym for 4 or 5 or 6 years and you're in your early 20s, every single year that you train should be the best your physique ever looked. It would make no sense to say, well, I look really good at 21, and then from the age of 22 to 23, my physique started to get worse. If you're in fact a natural athlete, every single year you should see improvements. Every single year. Unless, of course, you're doing everything wrong. You're trying to maintain 6-7% body fat year-round. You don't give yourself enough food, energy to train, then of course, you're not going to see the gains that you need. However, Mike Thurston was getting leaner, bigger, more shredded, and about to step on stage looking like a phenom. Look at his physique. The arms, chest, the abdominals, absolute perfection.
Fast forward to 2015, and it was a similar story. It was a bit of a repeat from the previous year. I decided to compete again.
Looked even bigger, better, making the improvements that he needed. And whether or not he was natural or enhanced, this absolutely makes sense. He's getting older, he's got more years under his belt, and so why shouldn't he be making these improvements?
I wasn't as restrictive, so I think when I managed to go on stage, I'd held a lot more size. It wasn't quite as defined, but still looked pretty damn good.
And in his words, he had put on a hell of a lot more size. Now, if you're a natural competitor and you've been training for 5 or 6 years, I highly doubt you're going to put on a hell of a lot more size. A little bit more size, but I wouldn't describe it as being a hell of a lot more size. Unfortunately, you put the most amount of muscle in the first few years of training. After that, there's a declining relationship between the amount of time you put in the gym and how much muscle you can gain. The further away you go from your natural genetic set point, the harder it is to build muscle. I trained naturally for decades, and when I was his age, it was very difficult for me to put on more than, say, 3, 4, maybe 5 pounds of muscle in a year.
Without a doubt, I was the most conditioned that I'd ever been at that point in time because I was doing 2 HIIT sessions a week.
And so he was the most conditioned he's ever been, got up on stage, had put on a ton of muscle, And he did so all in the last 2 years. The first 4, he did make some gains, but those gains dramatically sped up after his first 4 years. When you're natural, you can expect to make the greatest amount of gains the first few years and then diminish returns after that. This did not apply to Mike Thurston. He made slow and steady gains the first 4 years of a training, and then years 5 and 6, he suddenly put on a lot more muscle a lot quicker. And so, I don't know, perhaps he was natural the whole time and just trained completely wrong the first 4 years, and then suddenly learned how to train correctly, started eating properly, and that describes it? I really don't know. Perhaps he was eating and training so incorrectly that he only learned how to put on the muscle that he should have while being a personal trainer.
I was probably training about 6 times per week as well, which when I look back, I think it was probably overtraining.
If you were in fact overtraining, the muscle growth that you experienced would have been diminished. So all you people watching this, if you in fact think you're overtraining, then you're probably not building a lot of muscle. If you are in fact going to the gym, making gains, you're not overtraining.
I notice that when my life tends to be in a mess and I'm stressed out, not feeling great, I resort to food to kind of comfort me.
And so he started to eat more and says that he wasn't doing very good with his physique. Yet I'm looking at him and he has single-digit body fat, looking amazing. And so perhaps his idea of what doesn't look good, it's not the same as we do. He was losing muscle, smaller, was stressed out a little bit, eating more, and so it didn't look as good. And so if he was really eating more, is that not considered bulking up? And if you're in a calorie surplus, wouldn't it be easier for him to build muscle? I mean, after all, the guy was shredded on stage, perhaps 6-7% body fat. Looked incredible. But when you're in a calorie deficit, starving all the time, trying to maintain a physique that's incredibly lean, your testosterone levels, they tend to go down. And when your testosterone levels go down, you also tend to lose muscle. And so how can he describe putting on all this muscle while being in a calorie deficit if he in fact was natural? Of course, it's possible to build muscle in a calorie deficit when you're natural, but imagine how hard it is to dramatically build muscle faster than ever before while dieting, preparing for a bodybuilding competition.
And you know, my highlight was walking around Kingston and just trying to find like desserts and stuff and enjoying desserts and then sitting at home feeling disgusting and go to bed and then just repeating it.
He tried to get happy by eating food, and that led to a decline in physique. All that sounds like when somebody goes off a cycle. When you're taking steroids and you suddenly stop them, you are going to experience a lack of energy, mood, focus, and so on, oftentimes accompanied with feelings of depression. And when you're working hard on something to achieve a goal and all of a sudden it's over, sometimes you feel almost like postpartum depression. It's like, now what? I don't know what to do with myself.
That year, 2017, I don't think I peaked in terms of my physique. I didn't look amazing. I looked okay. You know, relatively speaking, I looked good.
Fast forward to 2017, 5 years ago, he didn't look very good. He calls it looking okay. This is what we call being peeled, looking extremely lean, having amazing conditioning. And so remember this, no matter how good you look, if you compare yourself to what you once were, you can often feel depressed because you don't look as good as you once did. People who get into competitions and get stage lean, shredded, they get up on stage tan, dehydrated. You can never maintain that look year round. You have to put on some body fat in order to maintain and build more muscle.
But unfortunately, one of the trips which I took earlier on in the year when I went to LA, I really messed up my shoulder. It was always holding me back from training shoulders properly and even from just doing bench press.
And suddenly his physique, it kind of goes downhill. But like, we're looking at it and it's like, dude, you look ridiculous. It looks insane. He's saying he lost a lot of size in his shoulders and his back. Frankly, I don't see it. He says, I was able to keep the size of my chest, but I guess that's genetics, and my legs got bigger. But he does say, you know, I was able to maintain a decent level of body fat. I mean, he's clearly single-digit body fat. He's excessively lean. 99% of people would dream to look like this, to be this lean year-round, but for him, it's decent.
2019. What a great year that was. All that year, I constantly had this motivation to be in decent shape because I knew I was going to be pretty much topless all the time.
And in 2019, despite living in a colder environment, he was highly motivated to be lean all the time because he was doing a lot of traveling to warmer environments. He knew he'd be shirtless, and so he was highly motivated to stay into single-digit body fat.
So January wasn't a very good month. I drank a lot. And I noticed my sleep was terrible.
And so then moves to Dubai and his physique takes a hit. It's not as amazing as it once was. Obviously, it's still crazy. We still all know that. But he blames it on the fact that he started doing a little bit more drinking, not sleeping as much. He says, as you know, drinking alcohol lowers your testosterone. And so that explains why I have less muscle. Now, frankly, here's the truth. Drinking alcohol is not going to have nearly the effect of being mind-blowing shredded on your testosterone levels. In other words, you have a set of twins. One drinks alcohol, the other has excessively low body fat levels, and if you test their testosterone levels, the one that's super shredded is going to have lower testosterone levels than the one that's drinking. Drinking alcohol doesn't completely ruin your physique, especially if it's only a couple beers a day.
So I noticed in January, at end of January, beginning of February, I didn't look very good.
I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, does this not sound like body dysmorphia? When you look as good as Mike Thurston and say to yourself, I don't look good, he doesn't have veins the size of my fingers running around everywhere, but doesn't mean he doesn't look good.
So I was starting to look good again, you know, my physique was getting on point, and then bam! Right after a trip to the Maldives, the gym's closed.
If you're natural and you continue training a little bit, for example, 1/3 as much as you used to, that is all it takes to maintain the size that you once had. It takes a lot more effort, more work to build the muscle that you have than it takes to keep the muscle that you have. And so if you are in fact natural and the world shuts down and you hardly train the way you used to, perhaps 1/3 as much, you still should be able to maintain a similar physique just by doing a little bit. Mike Thurston bought gym equipment, installed it into his house, and so of course he was still able to train. However, he decided to eat a little bit more crappy. He never went on a lean bulk. He says he went on a bulk, just eating everything and anything. Does it look like he got fat? Of course not.
All I did was just go to the gym and live a very relaxing, peaceful life. And I'd managed to get myself into great shape.
He then was able to train normally again and began to look ridiculous. Y'all remember this? I don't care what anyone says. When I see him in this, there is no way I believe this is natural. This looks night and day improved from what he once was. Unbelievable amount of size, conditioning, shape, everything on point.
I was sleeping like 8 hours every night, so I think that this definitely had a contribution to my physique looking the way it did.
And we all know that sleep does have an impact on your ability to build muscle. But you would not see this amount of up and downs in the physique of a natural athlete. You're not going to suddenly get this much more muscle after training for 10 plus years when you're long past the newbie gain phase by simply getting in more sleep. I mean, look at him with the red shorts doing the curls outside. This looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm sorry, I simply cannot hold it in. There's no way I believe that this is natural. It is unbelievable how much more muscle he has at this point than he once had. You can't convince me that just because of the world shutting down and you had to train inside your house that you were not able to build this muscle. After 10 plus years, you're not suddenly going to jump miraculously and put on this kind of muscle. It's not just the fact that he has that much muscle, it's that he lost body fat in the process. All of you are saying, oh, you need to bulk and cut. Mike Thurston, he doesn't do that. He bulks up, goes on higher calorie diets, and loses muscle. And then suddenly, when he cuts down, he gets way bigger. And so what I'm noticing a pattern here is that Mike Thurston gets leaner and bigger at the same time. And then in the off season, he adds more body fat and loses muscle.
It was like one big party in Dubai, and I think I definitely got sucked into the party life here. In December, I don't think I uploaded a video all month. I was getting very carried away, so obviously my physique didn't look that good.
And then he says he got sucked back into the partying, perhaps drinking a little bit too much, and then all of a sudden lost a bunch of muscle again. Listen, it's not that easy to lose muscle. If you're a natural athlete and you built that muscle over 10 plus years of hard work, you're not suddenly in 5 or 6 weeks of drinking some alcohol gonna lose all that muscle. It doesn't work like that. And just think, I'm racing bicycles, doing ridiculous amounts of cardio, and I'm not losing a ton of muscle. And yeah, I get it, I'm on HRT, but maybe that's what Mike's doing. Perhaps he's on HRT, we don't know. If you up or lower your dose, you're going to put on more muscle and lose muscle depending on what your dose is. If I were on HRT, which I am, and I doubled my dose for 3 months, I would obviously get a lot more muscle. And then if I lowered the dose back to what it's supposed to be, I would lose that muscle. That would explain cycling up and down in your physique, looking more muscular, less muscular, depending on the year. Or you can believe that drinking a few beers, not getting as much sleep, not being as motivated is going to cause all these drastic shifts in your physique every single month.
I think this is all relatively speaking, but for me, I noticed there was some few days where I was like, wow, like you can barely see my abs. And whenever I drink beer, I get this bloat.
And so like anyone else, he didn't want to record these videos when he wasn't at his best. For him, that look in his belly was bloated. For everyone else, that is our dream physique at the end of a diet. We wish we could look like Mike Thurston at his worst after we finish a diet. We want to look like that. But for Mike, that's not him at his best, and so he doesn't want to be on film showing his stomach at anything less than his optimal point.
I've had days where I'm so busy that I've actually skipped the gym, or I've had to rush a workout or not train at the time that I usually train.
And so he notices now he's more business-minded. He has a lot of things in the works. He's trying to improve himself in all areas. And so some days he can't go to the gym at the same time. Some days he even has to miss the gym because he's too busy. He's saying this is having a dramatic effect on physique. I simply don't believe this. I don't buy it. I personally go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm training 3 days a week now, racing bikes. Does it look like my physique has gone to shits? Does it look like I've ruined myself? And I've had dramatic injuries, both elbows, surgery to repair the torn tricep after breaking my elbow in bike crashes. I've had every excuse in the book to lose all of my muscles, yet I've gotten bigger and leaner. It's not that complicated, folks. You can miss the gym occasionally, train at different times than you want to, and you can still make do. You don't need to be perfect to improve your physique. If you only put in 50% of the work, most people still going to develop an amazing physique. It's not as hard as you think.
And I also notice, I think this is just something that comes with age. Like, I'm now 31.
Mike, you're 31, 32 years of age, and it's beyond your prime now? It's all downhill? You can't get the same pumps from 5 or 10 years ago? No! Are you kidding me? If you've legit been natural your entire life, then you're only starting to get at your best now. You will absolutely not feel worse, look worse, just because you're 31 years of age. You never said 41, 51? 31? Are you kidding me?
I'm not getting like the crazy pump which I used to.
And if I'm being honest, you're probably not going to believe me. The pumps I get from testosterone and the other supplements I have, pump pre-workouts and so on, are still incredible. I have better pumps now for sure than I did 20 to 25 years ago. And I get it. I'm not 100% natural. I am on HRT. And I don't have as crazy of a pump as when I was blasting tons of steroids. But I'm telling you what I'm taking. I'm being open and honest, telling you what I'm feeling. And I do still feel great, amazing when I'm training in the gym.
A lot of bodybuilders, they don't fully mature or get into their, the peak of what they're capable of until they're in their early 30s or mid 30s.
And so Mike actually understands this as he's saying it right now. He's saying it takes until you're in your 30s to get to your peak physique. You're not going to look your best after only 5 years of training. It takes years, 10 plus years of training before you can get to your all-time best.
So whenever I'm going through periods of time where my sleep is not good, my food is not good, or I'm drinking alcohol, my physique takes a hit.
He says it's relatively easy for him to be lean, and that I believe because it is going to come down to calories in, calories out. Regardless if you're eating shitty food or drinking alcohol, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're not going to gain weight. Drinking 1 to 2 beers a day, I do not believe that can be detrimental to your physique. But I do believe that trying to look as lean as Mike Thurston as he is over these past 10 years, that could be detrimental to your physique. Most people, if trying to look like Mike Thurston, simply wouldn't have the energy. They would lose sleep. They wouldn't recover as well. And so they would need to eat more in order to build more muscle. And so don't think that you can maintain single-digit body fat and build muscle and look like Mike just because he can. He says he's 100% natural and that he was able to do all of these amazing things, but most people, perhaps 99.9999999% of the world, they simply couldn't do that. Is he the one in the billion that can? Well, maybe, maybe not. Ending it here. GregDoucette.com for coaching, Greg Doucette IP Pro. Please check out the bloops. Also, harder than last time supplements, the natural ones, the ones that can actually work. Perhaps creatine, testosterone, pre-workouts, all these different things. Click the link in the description. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment for the algorithm. Don't forget about the friggin' cookbooks, and until next time, I'm out.